When will I be good enough to be all I wanna be? When?
So, we're here with Stefanie Fletcher, a revisit with you, Stefanie. We're in your home here in Santa Monica, California. It's a beautiful environment. It says to me, I'm a traveler, but I'm a home bird. So your life here, what is it about you, Stefanie, that is most alive? I could answer that question, but I'm not going to. I am actually. I can't help myself. Your eyes are most alive. They are sparkling. They are adamant for victory over darkness. They're adamant, they're determined, they're bright and beautiful.
Thank you.
You shared this story around eyes and this book, and I must say I was blown away is the right word here, because I was actually pushed back with a force of this story from your life and this beautiful book that you're developing and writing. Would you tell me about it?
It's been 30 years now that I've been a nurse, and I was very young at the time and quite impressionable, and was going to work directly out of nursing school into the intensive care unit. So I get to my job and I'm quite idealistic and happy to be there. I am assigned a patient. Her name is Paulette. She's 19 years old, and she was injured, fatally injured in a car accident, in a head-on car accident, and she was brain dead. So I'm given this opportunity to take care of her because her parents have decided to make her an organ donor. So I proceeded on with my first day, my very first day of work with her, and a very young nurse. And I was trained by the nuns. I went to a Catholic nursing school, and we were taught that no matter what in this world, as human beings, we don't know with absolution that when someone is declared brain dead, that in fact they don't have some sense of being. In my rational mind, I knew that Paulette didn't feel pain, and I knew when I looked into her eyes, when I opened her eyes and looked, she wasn't there. That her body was a shell. And yet the nuns had taught us that everyone, no matter what their circumstance, they are cared for with the same consideration as if that person were talking to you. You certainly don't touch someone or inflict things upon them without telling them or without explaining to them, even in a brain dead situation. And so I had spent my first day with Paulette just telling her everything that we were doing to her and letting her know that her parents were close by, and somewhat forming quite a relationship with this young woman who never spoke to me. She never looked at me. We never had the traditional connection that you consider people having. And so we were preparing her for organ donation, and in organ donation, a lot of times when you're going to donate all of your organs, which was the case with her, there comes a point when the corneas, when they're harvested, and I'm not really sure that I had any idea what was going to happen. I really didn't. And I sat down, and the gentleman came in that was going to perform the procedure, and I guess in my mind somewhere I thought he was going to actually do a surgery that would take the corneas off of the eyeballs. And so I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't afraid of it or put off by him at first. And so he started setting up his equipment and his tools. And normally when someone had come in to take care of Paulette, I told her, this person is here, this is what they're going to do. And this gentleman set up all of his equipment on his stand, and he had to put clamps to hold her eye open. And in less than a second, it seemed, without saying a word to her, without saying a word to me, he took this little spoon-like device, he popped her eyeball out, he cut her optic nerve, and he dropped her eyeball plop into a cup. And I just couldn't, I could not process what had just happened without any warning to me, without any warning to her. And I was a bit angry and frustrated and sad that I didn't know, I hadn't prepared myself for what was going to happen. And I felt in a lot of ways that I had failed her, that this horrible thing had happened to her. And so I ordered him out of the room, get out. And so he left, and I sat down and I apologized to her and said, I'm so sorry for what has happened. And this is what you are giving sight. You're giving up your eyes and you're giving sight to someone. And so after about an hour, I let him come back in and finish the procedure, and I called her parents in, and her parents came in, and we sat down, and I explained to them what had happened, and apologized, and they were perfectly fine. It was a struggle for them, but they knew what they were doing was giving life and sight to a lot of people. I think 8 people benefited. 7 people lived because of her, and 1 person got sight. And so after that experience, I sat down and I really just didn't know what to think of the whole thing. And so I sat down and held her hand, and I made her a promise that day. And I said, I will not forget you. If the day comes that I can't immediately recall who you are and your name, then I'll know I'm not to be a nurse anymore. That'll be kind of my sign that for whatever reason that has run out. And after that, I started writing letters to her. I call them the Dear Paulette Letters. And they were about everything. Some of the letters I wrote to her were about my patients. Some were about the birth of my children, the death of my father, different experiences I had all through my life. Sort of like a diary, but not really a diary. They were really Dear Paulette, just as if you were writing to someone who's alive. And so I started working on the book. I guess maybe it'll be called Dear Paulette. And it's more about the journey that I've had with loss, and that death is not final. It absolutely is not. And albeit people are afraid of it, and I guess part of what I would like to tell them is that there might be something to be said about being afraid of how we might die. So I think it's quite normal for us to have a fear of dying. Even animals have a fear of dying. But animals are different from us in that they don't have a sense of, they don't fear death like we as human beings have this sense of the finality of death. And part of this journey that I've been on is that this really, there isn't a death the way that we see death as an end, and the dual world and duality, because we are just pure awareness